and gentlemen, please welcome your host of this, whatever this is, show, graced by a Hawaiian shirt host. It's John from ARTV.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to ARTV. We've got a fun game for you at home tonight. Today, we're going to be playing Do You Know This Song and Band? 2000s edition. Now tonight, we will be getting justice for the forgotten bands of the 2000s, ones that either lost relevancy, broke up, or for some reason people just don't talk about anymore. And I feel like these bands deserve more exposure. So we're going to give them just that as we highlight 10 different bands tonight. Do you know these songs? Do you know these artists? Well, you might not know every single one, but we're going to find out as you play along at home. How this is going to work is I'm going to play you a clip before I reveal the answer on each and every one. So, best of luck to you. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and let's just go right into this. That very first song that you just heard was by none other than Hello Goodbye, a band that did a great job of fusing pop, electronic, and alternative elements into their music. The song you just listened to was Shimmy Shimmy Quarter Turn, and that Zombies, Aliens, whatever else it was, that album, you probably recognize the album cover here, that was the most successful for the band. It eventually went gold in the United States, and it did have some hit songs on it. You might know them for tracks like Here in Your Arms and Baby It's Fact, and maybe even Touchdown Turnaround, thanks to a lip sync by Wasabi Productions back in the day, back when Roy was still there. Yeah, that's for the OGs out there. Not everyone is going to know this band, but I do feel like they deserve some more attention because they don't get it, and they have some truly great songs in their discography. And they do have some new albums that have come out since then, and I think that they're worth checking out. If you haven't heard any of the recent Hello Goodbye releases, then I highly recommend that you go and do so, because even though they're not as popular as they once were, there is great material there. I'm sure many of you were scratching your brains at that last one because you might have heard that, but you had no idea what the band was. That was Shiny Toy Guns with their hit song, La Disco. You might also know them for their album We Are Pilots, which featured some hits like You Are the One and Rainy Monday, or maybe you even got on board with Season of Poison, which was a departure because they did lose one of their original vocalists that did end up rejoining the band. Kara wasn't there for Season of Poison, they had a different vocalist there, and that album was definitely different. It was louder and more confrontational in a way, but it's definitely worth checking out. Start with the track Ghost Town. You might have even heard some of the tracks off of their album 3, and while the band remains active supposedly, I haven't heard anything since 2012. So for now, check out some of their albums that they have available and reminisce on the days when they were a little bit more active. Now, I'm sure many of the hardcore fans of this band would take issue with me calling them forgotten, but let's just say I'm hoping to shed some exposure on them. I haven't talked about them on my channel in a while, and for some reason I've never reviewed one of their albums. Maybe I'll have to change that when their new one, I Hope You're Happy, drops in June, but Blue October is the name of the band that you just listened to. That was a track off of History for Sale that was called Calling You. They had a couple of hits around that time, and while that album wasn't the one that necessarily blew up, the next one was platinum certified. That album is called Foiled, and you probably know tracks like Hate Me and Into the Ocean. I would recommend starting with Foiled and then listen to some of their later albums that followed after that. There were some great tracks like Dirt Room, that was one of the singles, and you might want to check out Any Man in America or even their most recent album Home, and maybe even give the new one a listen when it comes out in June. I was always rooting for these guys, just because I always felt like they were the underdog. That was Motion City Soundtrack with Everything Is Alright, when everything isn't always alright. This band has a great blend of pop punk, pop rock, alternative elements, and they really progressed throughout their career, and I just hated the fact that they never took off. Their lead singer, Justin Pierre, was very, very charismatic. His hair, his look in general, and his voice. When they signed to a major label in 2012, they released My Dinosaur Life, which is a criminally underrated album. I thought it was fantastic, and unfortunately it was their only major label shot that they had. And the song on there, it should have been a hit. The lead single, I believe it was called Her Words Destroyed My Planet. That one is absolutely fantastic. But throughout this band's career, they were very, very consistent and solid. And while I wasn't in love with everything they released, and maybe I wish they went out on a little bit of a stronger note than Planet Stations, I don't know. It doesn't really matter all that much. They still leave behind a big legacy.
Right now, tell me what you thought about when you were gone and so alone. The worst is over. You can have the best of me. We got older, but we're still young.
Ready, set, go! We're at the starting line. That's the name of the band that you just heard, and that song was called Best of Me. Now, I am by no means a super fan of the starting line, but they did have some great tracks. The one that got me into them was Island Float Away, and I went back. Obviously, I know the big singles from this band, and some of the deep cuts as well, as they've come up on Spotify as I've shuffled through over the years. I particularly enjoy this band for the sense that they have a nice vocal presence, and the whole pop rock aesthetic without going overboard. There's definitely some harder guitars on some of the tracks, and they have a really catchy knack for making songs in general. Whether you love them upon first listen or if it takes you 5, these songs are going to get ingrained in your memory. And unfortunately, the starting line aren't around anymore. But if they were, I don't know. I think there'd be a spot for them. Breaking news, update alert. The starting line are apparently still a band. They've gotten back together and I didn't even know. Apparently they had an EP that came out in 2016. So, yeah, get on it. It's called Anyways.
When you say my name, I wanna split it from your lips. I'm like whispers in the rain. When you say my name.
It's a day of the week. It's on the tip of your tongue. I know you know it. I'll give you 3, 2, 1. It's Thursday. Thursday is the name of the band. They had some progressive tendencies in their music, post-hardcore, emo, other elements and tags were thrown onto them, but that track you just listened to was called Signals Over the Air off of the album War All the Time that came out in 2003. That album I found particularly fascinating just because it was a progressive step. This was their major label debut, but they had moved even further into progressive, forward-thinking territory. And while this track you just listened to, the little preview there, it might sound like other stuff of the time, trust me, I think the lyrics from Jeff Rickley are really what sell it. For me personally, he's a great producer, songwriter, and I wish that I knew more of their material. I really don't, but someday, I swear, if I ever get the chance, I want to take a deeper dive because everything that I've listened to has been fantastic for the most part. You might know them for songs like Understanding in a Car Crash, Counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which was my first experience with the band because I saw the music video on Fuse. There's many great songs, and they are back together at this point, and unfortunately, the following's not quite as strong, so go hit them up. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, look them up, look into them. This next band was formed in the late 90s, and their first album actually came out in 1999. It went big time viral at the time, even though viral wasn't really a word. They started attracting a lot of buzz, a lot of word-of-mouth attention, and eventually some of their songs really started gaining traction. The one that you just listened to was called Action in Action, and I love the kind of lo-fi feel it almost has. Just the production quality of the music video and everything that you just saw. You know, the budget couldn't have been huge for that, but they made do, and they made the best of it. I like the Get Up Kids for their just kind of DIY presence, the way that they did things, and they are back together at this point. They were disbanded for quite a while, but now being back together, I'm excited to see what could they do in the future if they do continue to put out music. Now, a couple of tracks that I would recommend, obviously Action and Action, and one of my early favorites from this band was called Stay Gone. Definitely some emo tendencies in the lyrical content, and I would say punk elements in parts of the music, and just kind of rock in general. I think a lot of people can relate to it. I have been on such a bender with this band's music that I just played right there. Do you know it? I've been really into it as of late. The band is called Interpol. They're a New York-based band, and that track was from 2002's Turn On the Bright Lights. The album is mesmerizing. So many great deep cuts on there in addition to singles like the one you just heard, PDA. If you've never listened to this band before, please change that, especially if you're into some darker, almost really weird counterbalance stuff. Even their self-titled album that a lot of people didn't seem to like as much, I really enjoyed. I think that 2014's El Pintor was fantastic. There were many underrated tracks on that, and if you haven't heard cuts like My Desire and even All the Rage Back Home, or I could list the entire album really. There's so many deep cuts there. I would recommend starting with the debut Turn On the Bright Lights, listen to Antics, and then listen to El Pintor and see what you think. If you're into alternative rock at all, this is a must-hear.
Now tell me what you saw, tell me what you saw. There was a crowd of seats inside, outside. I must have done a dozen each. It was the highlight through the weight the show was crushing you.
Getting close to the top of the list tonight, almost to the end of the challenge, we have the Karen OLED band, Yeah, Yeah, Yes. That track you just heard was from 2006's album Show Your Bones. It's called Gold Lion. This band also got their break and start from a single called Maps, which you might know from Rock Band. Like I said that was coming a minute ago. Yeah, this was the song I was talking about. Maps was huge on there. Many people loved it from Rock Band, but it was successful in the indie sphere before that. Now, their debut album, which was called Fever to Tell, is much more garage rock oriented for the most part, definitely kind of noisy, thrashy almost, and I like the fact that they've kind of changed it up with each release. Even though I don't love every single album, I can at least appreciate and respect the fact that they're willing to change.
Is it serious? I'm afraid it is. Am I gonna die? Well, son, death is gonna catch up to all one day. But yours is coming quicker than ours and ours.
Number 1 on my list of forgotten bands from the 2000s, Can You Guess It edition, it's The Academy Is. Signed to Fueled by Ramen, numerous singles and music videos over the mid-2000s, that track you just heard was called The Phrase That Pays. I always really liked the lead singer William Beckett's voice, and while many people will dismiss albums, especially like their final album Fast Time at Barrington Highs, as just pop rock cliches about romantic relationships and stuff like that, I honestly think back more pleasantly on it. And if you listen to like their debut album, trust me, there are more than enough songs to make up for the fact that some of the songs on Fast Times were kind of cliche. This band in general had a great alternative vibe. I thought the lyrics were usually pretty spot on, especially on their first 2 albums. Those are my favorites. It's just a shame that they never really took off like many other bands on Fueled by Ramen did. They never had the top 10 hits that Cobra Starship did, or Panic at the Disco, Paramore, other bands of the time like Gym Class Heroes. They were just kind of the middle ground guys that did have a loyal following but never really took off. If you'd like to see me do this again with more 2000s bands that I feel have been forgotten, or even 90s and 80s or early 2010s bands, then please, by all means, leave a comment and let me know that you enjoyed it. Other than that, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you're able to, please support me on Patreon at that top link in the description down below. The direct link to Patreon is over in this annotation in the corner if you would like to tap right over there. If you would like to see another recent review that I uploaded, tap right here, or another recent video I made on the channel right over here. All of my social media links can be found in the description down below, and other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on Beyond ARTV.